Welcome back to 420 Chief Podcast. This podcast is built to get veterans' stories of healing through plant medicine out into the world and keep a steady, honest spotlight on the veteran suicide crisis, because far too many of our brothers and sisters are still fighting battles long after the uniform comes off. Today's an incredibly exciting one because Doc Ray is back, y'all. Former Army Green Beret, legendary Northern Cali cultivator, creator of award-winning, patented cannabis strains. Not to mention, cannabis college professor. Beyond the titles, though, Doc Ray brings something very real and very special. That's real-world wisdom, a deep respect for the plant, and a mission that puts veterans and patients over hype and profit. This time, we're not just going to talk about cannabis, though. We're also going to talk about the mission, what it looks like when veterans come together in a safe, respectful, 420 friendly space. Reconnect with purpose and make sure nobody walks away without a battle buddy. So let's get right into it. And welcome back, Doc Ray. Doc, how you doing, brother?
What's up, Chief? I'm good, brother. I'm good. It's like, I woke up one more day, and I'm, glad to be, even in my anger and confusion, I'm still, trying to find my way through it every morning. My partner and I had a long conversation this morning about, where I am with my mental well-being and trying to, keep myself in the world, man. And I attribute a lot of that, like you and I have talked extensively about, I attribute a lot of that to the using ganja over synthetics or alcohol or, a variety of other things that you can do to, take to whatever, heal, numb, whatever the fuck word you want to use. I call it healing myself because I don't, really do alcohol anymore. And I got rid of all the painkillers and synthetics that I was prescribed by Uncle Sam. And I smoke, my blue skunk. What I'm smoking this morning is, you and I were talking earlier, just get my everything turned back on and get me where I feel balanced. So I'm still here,
Amen.
still hungry, been traveling the world, that kind of thing. So glad to sit down with you. You and I are getting ready to throw down in about 3 weeks, right? 3 or 4 weeks, that kind of thing. We're coming up on to. I'm
Absolutely.
hoping
And
that's where we're going to there, right?
for anybody, when you get some time, go back and check that out. I did do an interview with Doc Ray about his story and what he's overcome, not days and, going through a couple of explosions, but even after service, just growing on the mountainside and dealing with the feds and stigmas and all kinds of things. That just brings all kinds of trauma, tragedy, and even, anyways, but he found what really worked for him. So please check that episode out. It really is an action-packed episode. And after that interview, actually, Doc and I got talking a little bit more about doing an event to get veterans together, and we will get to that. But before we do, Doc, you mentioned you'd done some traveling. So what have you been up to since the last time we interviewed?
We did a multi-week cross-country trip at the end of last year. Did a multi-week cross-country trip, and then just recently just got back from about a month overseas in Europe. I love the Mediterranean. It's very peaceful and relaxing to me, and the people and the culture are amazing wherever you go there. So I just got back from a really cool trip down the coast of Spain and hung out in a couple of sweet spots that are really, really beautiful and on the beach, and the vibes cool, and the communities there, and by the community I mean the Green Tribe. My homies found me almost immediately after returning again, within a matter of hours of touching down. Man, my boys were coming around bringing the old man flour and everything. You fly and you ain't traveling with anything, right? So, but within 4 hours of touching down, Chief, the old man had a couple of jars of flour and a grinder and multiple packs of skins and a lighter, and people kind of waiting for us to get there. So it's cool, but I like that vibe and that groove a lot because it's just a much more mellow and more about living life and not working to survive, which is a lot of what's going on here now. So, but yeah, it was a good vacation and good for my heart and my soul, and for me to recharge and get ready for the spring and the summer here. And then I'm doing events this summer, starting with the one we're doing in a few weeks in Virginia. It's like, so I'm prepping for that as well, man, and consulting a little bit with a couple of companies that are crazy enough to want to step into regulated weed right now. And again, it's detrimental to my pocketbook to tell them not to, but I'm advising a lot of people that are thinking about it to be real, do your ABC 1, 2, 3, man. And unfortunately telling people to have a quick exit strategy if they're coming into an emerging market. So that's happening in real time. And then I'm judging Flower for that competition coming up. And, I smoke for my head damage. And a lot of this is so recreational leaning and indica hybrid dominant. It's not really my thread. So I'm having to counteract with my blue. And again, man, you get the amp feeling, brothers and sisters. There's nothing like a little CBD under your tongue, man, and it'll bring you right back to where you feel level and mellow almost within seconds. Within a couple of minutes, you're feeling that feeling subside. So I'm doing that too, bro. A little tincture and smoking and trying to go through this competition checklist of all these samples that I'm working through. But it's springtime. It's popping seeds. If you haven't been got them going already, a lot of people are in real time popping seeds, and missing that a little bit. But I know my farm in Virginia, they're working and got babies up, and we're moving forward, getting ready for another year at it. Small scale, even boutique, if you will. We're not even doing 100 plants. We're doing RNA and about 4 or 5 dozen special selected plants for the farm there. And you'll see that here in a few weeks in the beginning of it, and kind of like what you and I've been talking about. We're more about mom and pop and small scale and grow your own than I am corporate weed. And I have been that way for a few years now. It's like that was the only game a lot of us had, and now that's gone to become a complete shit show. Don't
Well, real
understand.
Doc, I think talking to you about this really opened my eyes quite a bit about the concern there. When you asked me a question, you said, "Chief, you grow your own." I said, "Yeah, I'm a cultivator. I'm and a carrier, very therapeutic." And I remember you asked me, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I take care of it." You're like, "Most of the time, it's just a paycheck, a clock in and clock out." You wanna talk to us a little bit about that and what that actually leads to a lot of times with this, cannabis in the dispensaries even?
Yeah, okay. And again, I love the community, and I know a lot of the people that bud tenders, and they work in the big farms in the middle of California. The great big ones. I see all that kind of stuff happening. You know, I, I love you, Chris, man. I'm trying to be back by the fall, brother. We'll sit down. I'm hoping. I saw his little message pop up. That again, Chris, is the deal, man. That's our redwood roots, and that's, in my opinion, the top 1% cultivators in the planet are represented by Chris Anderson and Redwood Roots. And that's Northern California distribution, and he's the real deal, man. And all the people that he works with are the real deal. And a lot of them are friends, and I like family to me. But this is what I see over and over again is what you said. Corporate weed. Okay, and I'm talking about like in California. And I worked with the big boys years ago, getting their operations and trying to figure out what the fuck they were doing. So what I've seen is with small mom and pops, what I said to you, it's like if it's the end of the day and the lights are turning off and you're putting the tarps up and you see a problem, do you turn it all off and walk away? And every one of my cultivation friends that we do this because we love it, nobody says they walk off. But in corporate weed, man, when the clock goes off, they punch a clock and the lights go down and they walk off. Well, that's leaving whatever the problem is to go for till the next day, Well, that's a major fail. And then years ago, I realized that they had built in a fail rate pre-harvest. Okay. I don't lose plants in my lab, in indoors, we just don't lose plants, and there they have a 30% fail rate. So you're telling me you plant 10 and you're assuming you're going to lose three of them before you get to harvest. That's just their built-in mode. And then they have equally as a high fail rate after harvest. So you're talking a swing of 50 to 60% combined. That's huge. And then I talk to my friends and myself
Yeah,
included, and even
that's
you, brother,
devastating.
dude, you don't lose plants, again, we just don't do that, 1%, 5% fail rates on people that are scaling. And this is not acres, but it is thousands of square feet, it's like 30,000 to 40,000 square feet. That's almost an acre, three-quarters of an acre, 20, half an acre, that's a lot of canopy and a lot of plants going on, so in that scale model, what we call scales, craft farming, we just don't really have a plant loss. And then in corporate weed, they're punching a clock, it's shareholder value. Just let me go back over a little bit of time. In 10 years, okay, before all this happened, we gave a fuck about our packaging. We all use sustainable packaging. We were going forward with packaging technology that they don't even practice with rare exception anymore, except maybe in the West Coast, like sea plastic packaging and all this crazy shit, that we were going in. Our costs were up there, and it was probably in 2020. That's been a minute. I realized, dude, all my profits in my fucking glass tube and lid and responsible boxing and soy ink, that's where all my fucking money is. And over time, we've had to go to tubes and wraps to compete, man, because we just can't compete anymore. That's what's happened to the craft community over and over and over. And then we've seen this shift within the industry, especially in the recreational end, man. And that's the part that bothers me, is this bottlenecking of genetics, okay? Repeating the same things over and over again and calling it a different thing, no paperwork trail or COAs. And then you talk to us like where I'm from, man, we've been learning how to comply with the laws for fucking decades. We all have COAs, we all have paperwork, we've got ID numbers and tax numbers and all, and then we're competing against people that are supposed to be in corporate weed, and they don't do that shit. And then they're backdooring things, and all, it's just over and over, and then compressing the price down. Well, now we're in a real bad state of where top tier flower from Northern California in the Triangle specifically, that 5 to 10 years ago was wholesaling for $3,000 to $5,000 a pound. Granted, that's in packaging with all the labels and seals on it. That's down to a few $100s a pound now, and that's how bad it's compressed. And it's pushed everybody out on art in my community, the tribe, 99 plus percent, where there used to be 50,000 of us. Now there's a few hundred. That's over and over in the triangle. That's over and over again. So that's happened. And so everybody still wants to get in the game. They're going into corporate weed, and they're punching a time clock, and when the shift's over, they walk out. And if something's wrong, it gets missed. And that is things that we in the community, the medical community from 30 years ago, that group of cultivators have worked to become better at. And there's just a loss in translation, and it breaks my heart, because we've tried to share this information and we've tried to be engaged with them. And Not all at first, but a few of us have really tried to understand, look, we're going to get assaulted if we don't figure it out how to fucking do it. And that's happened. So, there's those breaks that's happened. And like I'm talking to people that are asking about, I want to get into the industry. My best advice is be very wary in coming into it. If you want to come in and learn from the ground up somewhere, but cultivation, be very wary of who you're working with. A lot of unscrupulous operators. Markets are crashing almost immediately. They start here, and in 24 months, they're down here over and over and over. That's the reality of what's happening, in my opinion, on regulated cannabis. Okay. Now, the mom and pop community, where I find my most value add, is sitting down with brothers and sisters that want to learn to grow their own flower or do a small scale project and produce a superior product for a small niche market. That's where that's at too. And again, I maybe should have Chris on sometime, Chief,
Well,
and talk to Anderson about what he's been up against. Because I see what's happened. It's like we're having to compete in a tighter and tighter market on the West Coast. The margins have gotten smaller and smaller. The things that have become a major issue, like getting Northern California flower into the other rest of the market, is always moving it from point A to point B. Those costs logistically have gone through the roof with fuel and lodging and accommodations and all this other shit that's going on. It's, I mean, I may be speaking out of turn, but it's a bloodbath to a lot of
well,
us, right?
Doc, you talk about this a lot, and I understand what you're saying, especially from a business end, but can you break it down and explain to the consumer of those products and our veteran audience what that actually means to them as far as quality and pricing?
Okay, as far as quality goes, I'm going to go back to something I told people for years. Look, if you don't understand this, the first thing you do is go, do you know your farmer? Do you know your grower? What is the source? And when you walk into corporate cannabis, that's one of, if you don't know, like, hey man, can you tell me about the farmer? If they take a pause and a blank, you're smoking freaking commercial regulated booth, man. That's just the truth of it. Okay. With rare exception, not everybody, with rare exception, but you go into a dispensary or a retail location where they highlight craft growers and organic and sustainable and all the different ways that we do, from dry farming to JDOM to freaking organic biodynamic, all these things that sun farmers do. They'll tell you about it. They'll be highlighted within their displays. They'll want to talk to you about it. Okay. The other thing is, a lot of it is like, we're, for the most part, the bulk of us that are what I consider craft or artisan farmers, we're about, terpenes, man, full expression, full spectrum. And a lot of recreational retail flowers are, they're THC forward, man. That's like, that's what they talk about. Now they're parroting us more and more because we've been on this for a minute. We launched my terps by Doc and Bentley in 2020 and 21. It went into the market, and that was a first forward slap of, terpenes over THC that I took 5 years ago, was with Bentley and I doing that project together. And I think it was, helpful in changing the conversation because everybody's doing it. And I saw that with my colleagues at the time, like, Compound and Cultivated, and when they were working together, and, you know, their president in my area, after you and Bentley did that, we couldn't use your word, so we launched a flavors thing. And fuck, flavors was the word that we used before we knew what terpenes were. So I got off point a little bit, but in working with the two different industries, for people walking into the dispensary, is to try and inform yourself as best you can of what you're looking for. Are you wanting a day experience, or are you wanting a nighttime experience, or a chilled experience? Uplifting and creative one way. I want to freaking put on Netflix and smoke weed and sleep all afternoon. That's a different approach. And that's about knowing which terpenes work within your body. It is the cannabinoids as well. Truthfully, CBN more than THC. People think it's THC that knocks them out. It's not, it's CBN. Okay. So there's a lot of that that's a misunderstanding. And then knowing what terpenes work for you, like again, on the sleep side, like linalool and osamine and caryophyllene and things like that. And then on the other, the upside, limonene, pinene, myrcene, you understand. Okay, now these are the questions that you ask for. Okay, the chief's got his cheat sheet, so these are the questions you ask. Is it myrcene and limonene? Well, the reality is there's so much hybriding going on that myrcene and limonene are in a lot of fucking things, and pinenes are in a lot of fucking things. It's more about the order they are, and seriously, the order they are, the amount of each one, the percentages or ratios to the other ones to get that effect, or the word entourage effect. That's where that all comes into play. So knowing what terpenes you are looking for your experience, it isn't about THC. If you're wanting something to help you relax and sleep, it's about CBN. And I've got my own thoughts on CBGA when it comes to application, but CBN, a totally another conversation. But
Sure.
this is where that's at right now. Okay, for the consumer walking in, and I got that yesterday with a guy, and I'm telling him basically the same thing. Look, you need to kind of know what works for you. Yes, a lot of it is, but knowing which terpenes that you're looking for. Now you can go with a very simple Google search, type in cannabis genetics with myrcene, and it'll list a variety of things for you, so you know what to look for when you're going into the store. Okay, here's the big problem. They change the name on the same shit over and over and over again. Okay, that's all they're doing. And okay, you get it. It smells the same. It tastes the same. I get the same effects. It's the same weed, kids. It might be calling it something, but it's the same shit. Okay, or the same genetic profiling. That's the reality of where a lot of the market is. And what I said to you, a lot of this is, before we came on here, a lot of this is leaning into the more sedative genetic lines. I've bred for cerebral because of my head damage. Okay, now what this community, the veteran community, like my blue skunk, man, this is a very cerebral forward plant, specifically for me, for my own head damage, for my own TBIs and my own life, and just fucking concussions and multiple concussions and a couple of severe TBIs. As I use this plant, and I truly believe that its genetic profiling is designed to help with cerebral and have a pain relief effect after, but not make you where you want to lay down, take a nap. That's 20 years of me doing it, but also now the data backs that up. And then also peer review, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of vets have smoked this fucking plant around the country and the world now. And the consensus is the same thing over and over again. That's the part right now that I think is sorely missing from the recreational end of the deal, because they don't have COAs 90% of the time. They don't have clear, definitive labeling that says what everything's in it. Then we have questionable sources of where it's coming from. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the truth of regulated weed right now, is they don't regulate where it comes from. If it's coming out of hemp, a lot of times they can open source it with no trail on it. And, I hate to be this way, but I've seen it where you get it and it comes in and the bags are full of mold, and these are pounds, and you can see the mold ripple through the bag before you ever open it. Are they going to throw it away, or are they just going to throw it into the bin and turn it into some extract form and put it into a gummy, an edible, a vape pen? Then we see it. I don't know if you're not keeping up with it, brothers and sisters, but I keep up with the industry's news, and then we see these massive crashes of failures of pesticides and microbials in vape pens, and then unregulated carrier oils that are really you can rub it on you, but you're not supposed to fucking smoke it. this is some serious shit, and then watching people on social media, literally, I got this vape pen from such and such, but there isn't anything on it, but it tastes good. Yeah, but do you know what's really in it? What are you smoking? Are you smoking synthetic terpenes that have been added to it? Are you smoking a hemp-based derivative that was somebody's trash that they just bought it for 10 cents on the pound and threw it into a vat and mix it all? It happens, and it does, and I hate that it happens because they're saying it's regulated, and they're not regulating fuck all. They're taxing it. Okay, they're taxing it, and they're charging for workers' compensation and insurances and all these things. But to see it where in the reality of it, being it and having brands, and now stepping back away from it because I'm old and watching my friends fight, and trying to be where inform and make the consumer smarter. There's a real gap there, and it's happened in 10 years. It was when you were a medical patient pre 15, 2015, when you were a medical patient before that time period, like from 96 to then, that 20-year time period, most of the consumers, whether they were coming in to get weed to get high or not, they did go get a medical recommendation, and they were pretty informed about what they were looking for. Maybe not to the terminology that we have now, but as far as what effects they were looking for, and it was different, man. We had 1 gallon glass mason jars sitting on a shelf, and you walked in and we brought those down, and you brought your jars. There wasn't a fancy mylar bag. You brought your jars in, and we talked about it a little bit, and you told me, you wanted something for your back, or I need to be able to work all day and my hips killing me. I gave you a sativa Ford hybrid that would ramp your ass up and take the edge off of it a little bit, And hey, man, I need to sleep. I've been up for 5 days. We'll smoke this, and that wasn't it was THC full, but it was mostly CBN. We got some CBN THCs that are like 1 to 1s, 3 to 1 kind of ratios, and they'll 8% THC, but yeah, man, but it's 18% CBN, man. Your butt's going to take a nap, and I don't care who you are, man. It's 6'10" and 500, man. You're sleeping like a baby in about 20, 30 minutes, and this is over and over and over again. So that's been removed completely. Now it's about coming in, not all of them, and not on the West Coast because we've been doing it longer, but a lot of the new emerging markets, it's the hype and the flash and the bang, unless it's opened with intention, which is to be a medical dispensary and not a recreational dispensary. But you walk into a lot of recreational shops, and it's just questionable a lot of times to me personally in my own experience. And I've walked in a lot of these motherfuckers over the last decade. Okay. I've traveled a lot of the world in this arena. I've done the bulk of the United States and market in this arena in cannabis. And I've seen it over and over. And, big operators doing not bad things in the canopy, but their marketing approach is just ridiculous, launching joints into a crowd from a t-shirt shooter, and the joints go all over the ground, and I'm talking dirt, and then everybody's scurrying like little rats to pick these fucking things up, man. This is
Yeah.
what are we doing,
I
bro?
wanna
So
take it back to something you actually had touched base on earlier, and this is something that hits my heart every time, and when I talk to veterans, or I'm doing one-on-ones, or I'm doing meetups, I always recommend if you're not growing your own, know where it comes from, have that relationship with your medicine. And when I started to think about that, I realized, oh my gosh, how much have I smoked that came from, China, or that did have these chemicals or high in metals. And it made me realize it. And so I actually started, traveling and touring, and I will go to where I would get the flower or the hemp and see the operation, get to know the farmers, get to know the workers, see how they do everything. And then I know exactly what's in it, and I can say that it's safe for my friends to consume, from a major operation. But what I'm hearing from a lot of my brothers and sisters out there, even on The West Coast is, some of them don't smoke, they don't consume that way, but they like the edibles or the beverages, but there's never, like, a terpene profile on the can, and they don't know. They're like, every time we ask, and a lot of times they'll say, "Well, it's just made like, the gummies are just made from the trim," and they mix it together. So, Doc, what would be your advice for those out there that are trying to consume, whether it be gummy or beverage, on finding those safe alternatives?
I've got friends in that arena that are really good at what they do. Go back to what I said about your flour and your concentrates, man. Is what's your source? Know the farmer. Know the farmer. Do I know where these gummies are being made? Do I know who the organization is? Because there's a lot of honorable small operators are being squeezed real hard. There's a lot of small honorable operators that do it right. That's what the consumer needs to know is where who to support. Exactly, man.
Yep.
Right? It's like my friends that cultivate the farms that I know that are still in the game, man, like they're not the weakest ones in the world, brothers and sisters. After the last 10-decade assault, they are not the weakest. They're the 1%. They're the baddest boys and girls in the world, man. And that's my family in Northern California. That's where they've been pushed to, is where had unlimited retail space and we were just couldn't keep up with it 8 and 9 years ago, to where there's hardly anybody left. That's just what we've seen. But know the farmer locally, know the source. If it's a small mom and pop operation, or is it a corporate chain? If you're walking into a cookie store, kids, that's corporate weed, man. If you're walking into an independent in your state or region or community, and it's a mom and pop and they're smoking or supporting local mom and pops, there's a high probability that they're going to know their farmers, know the sources, and be able to guide you with what you want. And this
Absolutely.
really is about putting your money where your mouth is nowadays. I'm blessed to have the family around me that I have. That my farm, we grow organic full sunflower in Virginia. It's done beautifully by a bunch of people that care and love it, and it's like the whole community that's when you're getting ready to meet a lot of them this here in a month, bro. It's like this is a good group of men and women that love what they're doing, and they've allowed me to come in and help, and get created a place for me to continue my research and breeding projects and help them expand, not necessarily expand it, but get better at what they're doing. And it's been a beautiful relationship between
Yeah.
us. And I can see okay, that's not retail weed. That's not corporate weed, man. That's the old school medical community where we love what we do. We cultivate with compassion and passion. There's many ways around the ball to do it if you're doing it holistically. We had this last time. I don't buy off on the organic word because there's a lot of leaning in that. But if your methodology is holistic and true with intent, then I support what you do, and I'm not talking about salts and synthetics. I'm talking about growing cannabis naturally. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. And why I've got flower right now, man. I'm judging indoor flower, which is like probably my least favorite thing, but it's the biggest category. And my brothers and sisters back home, man, them, can you show us a better example? This is full sun outdoor, and it's better than everything in all these fucking bags, man. It looks better, it smells better, it tastes better, it's a cleaner expression.
That's
You know,
so interesting to me, Doc, because you bring this up, but I don't think a lot of people realize this. When I started to look for sourcing for my own lines and things, and it kind of fell through, but I learned that a lot of people won't even consider outdoor grow an exotic. They say it can't outdoor can't be, and I'm like, but the best I've ever had was grown outdoor, and I've had a lot. I'm one of those people. I got to try things and find what works for me. I want to know. Like, I do my what I call independent research because I believe we're all a little different, and so that's why I came out with the book, so I could document it, but I've tried a lot. I know what's good, I know what's bad, I can almost tell you the terpenes just from smoking it now. I can almost tell you everything that's in it, and I can tell good from bad, and the best I've ever had in my life was all grown outdoor.
It's the real. Okay, let's go back 30 years, man. None of this indoor, little tiny little bit, tiny little bit being done in greenhouse. It was all outdoor sun in the full sun weed in the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, coming forward. Okay, we never stopped growing cannabis in Northern California. Okay, that's the reality of it. You go look on the records. Humboldt County had marijuana tax stamps for freaking ever. So that being said, cannabis full sun outdoor full term was the about the only thing you ever got up until about 25 or so years ago, with rare exception. There was a indoor cultivation going on, but it wasn't nearly where it is now. As far as this is advancement, it's all happened in the last 10 years. Okay, regulated weed, when California went in 15 and 16, that's over the last decade. Everybody's gotten in behind that, with only a handful. Colorado, Washington, and Oregon. That's Washington, Oregon, California. That's the whole fucking west coast of this country, man. That's the reality of what cannabis was until California tipped a little over a decade ago, but let's call it a decade ago, when that tipped into, we're going to do adult recreational weed. That's where we've seen this industry just go. Okay, CPG, consumer packaged goods, was non-existent in medical in 215 days. It didn't, again, we had big glass jar. You brought your little glass jar in. We filled your jar up. You put it back in your bag or your satchel, your basket, and went on your merry way. They created a whole industry of fancy packaging and mylar bags with cartoon characters. It has nothing to do with the quality of the flower in the bag or the container. That's been made in 10 years. And then you then have all the other things that have happened, like from not knowing how to really cultivate, so spraying shit on it so it smells better or hardens it up, to rolling it in fucking THCA powder and then putting, oh my God, let's put food coloring in that and make it a different color and call it, whatever the fucking moon rocks, whatever the hell you want to call it. That's another manipulation that is untested and unverified. And I've been in those arenas with people, and okay, I get what you're doing here. Let me show you this flower that's unadulterated and grown correctly. And yeah, I'll see if you can get out of the chair in 20 minutes. It's just over and over and over
Well,
again.
Doc, I'll wrap it up this topic by saying you spent so many years growing your blue skunk intentionally, okay? I think we when consumed intentionally, it does what it's supposed to do, and I think because of the market and the advertising of it and the money of it all, it's gone away from intentional usage and growing to more focused on the scent or even the look. I've seen a lot of, people seek after the purple that smells good and this and that, but I like it when it's a little harsh and effective. Like I can like my homegrown, I don't test it, I just grow it, I know what's in it, I know it's clean, I know it's good, I cure it, I dry it, I do all the things myself, and I consume it, and I know what it does for me, and I don't even need a lot of it. That's the craziest thing, I think, because, recreationally, I can consume a lot. I could sit there and just back to back, in rotation circles, but with mine, that's not even a necessity. It's just 1 or 2 here and there, and I'm good to go because of that intentional use. So I think that, to sum it up, like you had said, I think a lot of it's gone away from what are the effects and the impacts that it'll have on folks, and more to the look and the smell. Um, so that's a huge thing. That's reality of it, and that and more. And you'd mentioned Garrett Farms, where you're doing some growing there. So if folks are interested, they'll actually have an opportunity to kind of come out, get educated, and see that for themselves. Um, After our last interview, we had brought this up earlier on the show. We talked about getting veterans out and doing an event, and I think it was like Doc's like, "Give me a couple of days. Give me a couple of days. I think I know a place." He called me back and he's like, "Hey, check it out. There's this place. It's on the Roanoke River. He told me how beautiful it was. Called Garrett Farms, told me briefly what they did, how he knew them, and said that they host, these events there. And so I checked it out, and sure enough, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Doc hits it out of the park." He finds this place that's got everything we're looking for. It's got camping so people can stay. They got a stage for a band. They've already even got Springfest that they said we could kind of piggyback on. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Springfest, but Doc, I'd love after that for to hear from you, like kind of the layout, what to expect, what it looks like. But it is in, Salem, Virginia, right? Or the address is in Salem, but I think it's actually Glenvar. It's a Springfest in itself is a public, civilian-friendly festival rooted in gardening, growing, education, and community. There'll be vendors there with, garden supplies, lots of arts and crafts, all kinds of things. I like to say a little bit of something for everybody. Food trucks, which I couldn't be more excited about, and just a super, super diverse group of folks and atmosphere. The Diamond Cannabis Cup, this is the second one that they've had there. Spectator-friendly competition and education. We've even got Ganjiers there. Doc will be there, myself, a few of the other growers that will be there to be able to answer a lot of questions about some of the things Doc and I talked about earlier in this episode being, what strain is that? What terpenes are in there? And how will this, impact me? Doc mentioned he's actually judging the one of the categories, and so this information will be documented not just from him, but other judges. I myself am judging another category, so I'll be doing the same thing, using it and documenting it intentionally, how it helped or didn't help me. I'll be very honest, but this will be a good place to find out a lot of that. Maybe even try it out for yourself and also live music. They got a band, Dr. Bacon, amazing following. I did check them out on YouTube, and I'm super stoked because they are for sure a jam band, and I love to just melt out, jam out, and listen to tunes. That's therapeutic as well. Music is therapy, y'all. It really is. Quick logistics. It's for all ages. I think it said there's a family-friendly Easter egg hunt, but for the Cannabis Cup and everything, 21 plus. You can get tickets there on site, and they are credit card friendly. The vendors all accept credit cards and cash as well, I do believe. If if anybody is still interested in being a vendor, you can go to garrettfarmsinc.com and sign up. They've got in like their drop down a vendor spot. You just go there and send an email, and Ian will reach out to you. Doc, you wanna tell us a little bit about the scenery, of Garrett Farms so that you can kinda set the stage for what people expect when they arrive?
It sits in the Roanoke Valley, and it's like Garrett's one of those unique farms that's in that area. It's like you are on the outside of Salem City and Roanoke, which is its own little entity. And as you go kind of southwest, a few miles, you're literally like, oh man, what is it? It's just like a short country drive out. It's like you're just not even really going out of the city at all. You go to the edge of town and take a left, and as you go down into the little valley right there, go over the railroad tracks, man, come around the bend. The farm sits right on the riverfront, and it's acres and acres of uh it's gorgeous. It's okay, let me back up. Garrett was a farm that was in the program at Roanoke College when I was with cannabis with them a year or so ago. Was one of the first farms involved in the hemp program in Virginia. One of the very first licenses to be produced there. Has been a multi-generational vegetable farm for decades and decades. The owner of the properties, a little older than I am, is a brother, like a brother to me. A whole nother topic. We're talking about medicine, and stuff. That's a whole nother topic on that about because we're actively working with Buddy with his Parkinson's his early Parkinson's with treatment with CBGA and a multitude of other things, but actively working on that project at the farm. This is that farm. It's a family farm, and their son Ian is he's a veteran, man. He's an Army infantry guy, man. Spent time in the sand. You guys are about the same age. You interviewed Ian here. His heart's in the right place. He's got good intention with this. I took him from where they were getting into it to where we are now with, we've got a smart team that's been there. We're, teaching them old school Northern California ways of how to grow cannabis, to the way we do it, and went from when I first got there where he was doing, using using synthetics. I've just put it out there. He was using some synthetics in his practice to, we did this last year, and from here on forward is all organic or natural, or holistic in our approaches to everything. We're not using any synthetics at all on the farm, which is a win. And, in real time doing I guess that was 2 seasons ago, doing side by side of his way versus, holistic, man. And again, you could smell the difference, see the difference. I get it. Got to see it, got to do it. Farmers, that's the way we are. I'm a farmer too, first and foremost. I like growing cannabis, but I always grew my own other vegetables as well, and fruits too, but veggies as well to survive back in the day. It's like that's this farm on scale, and to sit and talk with Buddy, Ian's father, is to sit down and talk with the old man about the days of, being a cornerstone of the farmers market there, originally getting it going back in the 70s, and it's like that's a half a century ago, when he was a young man like I was, it's like where we are now. And, talking about being able to go to the farmers market with corn fresh from the farm, and pick it that morning early, and they were going for a couple of bucks or better an ear back then. Can't give it away now. They stepped into the arena in 18 and have been navigating forward for, going on 8 years now, what regulated hemp production looks like in Virginia. And it's like I was writing about it earlier about how convoluted it is everywhere. Here's another example. There's no THC sold in any recreational realm in Virginia. However, you can grow 4 at home, and you can grow 4 whatever you want. There's that one big one right there. And then all the unregulated stuff that's going on. It's one of those states where they used to have multiple testing services available in the state. There's now only one, and it only does a handful of tests, and they aren't anything that really help you determine whether or not your flower's quality or clean. This is a serious problem, in my opinion, in regulated flower. Okay, going back to what you said, I'd rather sit down with a brother and sister that's grown with intention, and I know they slow cured their weed and they grew their flower with love, and they didn't put anything on it because they're consuming it themselves, and they know it's their medicine and their recreational choice, right? I'd rather sit down with that than anything else, because it's like where I am, man. I grow my own flower for myself. Before any of this ever happened, 10 plus years ago, I didn't know any of these fucking people, man. I stayed on my mountainside and grew my weed and tried to keep my crazy ass from going off, man. And I hit on one, and 20 years ago hit on one that worked for me, and it was me putting a breeding project, a crossing project back then, and me putting the one that I used to put me on the couch and the one that kept my head together, man. And that was where I started with that, to what, now it's the Blue Skunk #2 with paperwork on it and freaking fingerprinting and all that kind of crap.
And you guys at Garrett Farms now have that going, so that'll be for DD-420 and Springfest. You'll have seedlings there for people to see. So that clean, all holistic approach you're talking about, folks will be able to actually see that for themselves at this event, which I think is amazing. I did wanna mention, though, that once the Dr. Bacon ends, the event ends, that's when the actual mission begins. That's when mission DD-420 really starts, and, Ian was able to work out with Dr. Bacon, a deal where they're just gonna hang out with the veterans after everybody leaves. They're gonna play, like, a private concert for us for a little bit, just kinda jam out with us, and this is a good time for breakout sessions, smoke sessions, for people to really network and gather. There'll be so much information from so many different types of vendors and people in general that'll be there. So not all cannabis related, but it is veteran only. So veterans, their spouse and or caretaker 420 friendly overnight experience that's really built on camaraderie and education. So if you have questions or you're wanting to try something, that's a good, safe place to be able to do that with so many people there that can kind of mentor. Uh-oh, Doc dropped. He's back. But what I'll say in addition to that is that Break Stigmas nonprofit is covering the cost for all DD-420, members for their camping for the whole night, so that's pretty awesome. We've been able to collect some funds to do that and also offset the costs for Garrett Farms, you know, 'cause events cost money, everything does, but we don't want that cost to reflect to the veterans. We wanna get folks together, and this is just another modality or another way to do that. I think Doc's getting a call is what that is probably. Um, I've been to a lot of other veteran events from snowmobiling, you know, fishing, horseback riding. This is a different alternative, a different modality, um, where it's a little bit more 420 focused, and what I mean by that is to get the right information out there about the terpenes and to give people information about what to look for on their own, and especially if they're interested in growing, I couldn't think of a better place to be to find not only the genetics, but the information and some of that passed on wisdom. We've got right here in front of us, we've got Doc Ray, the cannabis professor out there that's been doing this for longer than some of the folks that'll be there have even been alive, which I think is really cool. So if you're interested in making a donation to support and try to get more veterans there, check out breakstigmas.com. Again, it's open for veterans, spouse, and caretaker. It's open farmland with river access, tents, primitive off-grid RVs, are all right to be there. So expect, though, early May conditions. I know the river will be cold, so you probably won't wanna swim in it, but you could kayak it.
And
Um,
totally fish though, if you want to fish, you know, if you want to bring it wet a line, it's a beautiful riverfront and a beach, and there's a couple of little drop offs if you want to, you know, fish. You're more than welcome to. I'm sure it wouldn't be a problem at all. So
I've had, some amazing folks, reach out, make some donations. I know John and Kara from Slap Happy here in Missouri have some Mellocello gummies and drinks I'll be bringing for veterans to try. Those have been my favorite nationwide. Also had, Float House donated a couple of cases of some of their they make a beer that's a low, very low THC out of Connecticut. They're a company out of Connecticut that they nailed it, like, absolutely nerded out on the flavor and got it spot on. So, I have had a lot of veterans that tell me they enjoy the taste of beer. You can still get the beer without the alcohol at these. I'm gonna be giving those out. There are no sales on site, so veterans won't have to pay for any type of holistics, just the food truck. So make sure that you bring your some funds for that. The food trucks will have agreed to be there for the event and then again to do breakfast in the morning was my understanding. So that was really awesome that Ian got that worked out. There will be porta potties available and cases of water. So make sure if you're planning to come and camp out to bring, you know, bring your own snacks, your own munchies, your own drinks, things like that. And Doc, I can't wait to, just sit around, brother, and, have conversation and indulge in therapy in person.
yeah, I wanted to ask you one of my questions to you, Chief, was I know you were able to get a hold of my flower. What did you think?
So, I first off, I was appreciative of how it arrived. It arrived in glass and sealed, so it wasn't in a plastic bag or anything like that, so I was grateful for that, and I was glad to see, that it looked like homegrown, that it looked real. It wasn't too fancy for me. It was just real, and, when I smoked it, I could feel it. That was my first thing. I smoked some with my son, and the day after it arrived, and I was like, "Pay attention to it," and you could definitely tell. It didn't take a lot, just like a good homegrown, it didn't take a lot. The first thing I noticed was, my shoulders relaxed, and I was like, "Holy smokes, this stuff is really, calming me down." Like, I could feel my shoulders just relax a little bit, and that allowed me to just calm it down. I was like, "Wow. Wow, I felt that." And I think that's one of those that I really respect because it wasn't, like, super smooth, super soft. I'm an experienced smoker. It didn't have me gagging by any means, but I could feel it, and I could especially feel it hit when it came on. I was like I said, my shoulders just dropped, and I was like, "Oh, wow, like, I can loosen up," and I was ready to go, take my dog, and that's what I did, took the dog out, threw the Frisbee, and, I really felt more present. That was one of those that helped me focus throughout the day, pay attention to what I was doing, and kinda stay on track because 'cause I'm very ADHD, doc, so I'll be doing if I've got up to go get a coffee, when I go inside, I'll be back in, like, 20 minutes because 'cause I'll stop and do, like, 60 things on my way there and back. It's bad. But with that, I was able to just kinda focus and severely let loose. I was able to severely let loose, so that was amazing. It felt good. I loved it. So that's my feedback.
Appreciate it.
Well, Doc, I appreciate you, and thank you so much, and, for anybody out there that's got questions, feel free to reach out, leave us a comment. Definitely, share out the live. To register for the event, we have it on 2 places. We actually have registration on LinkedIn, and you can just hash search for the hashtag DD-420 on there, but we also have the registration link and details as a Facebook event. Again, if you just search on Facebook hashtag DD420, you'll find it. And please, if you think of any veterans that could find a benefit from that, definitely share it out to them. It's a great resource, I think, more than anything. And I'm in all of my experiences in attending so many veteran meetups nationwide, the thing I love the most about meetups like this is the diversity of it all. Like as a chief, I can stand back and just look at healing happening in real time, and that melts my heart so much because at the end of the day, doc, this is what we're doing it for, This is exactly what we're doing it for, so to see that in action and see our brothers and sisters finding not just healing, but one another again and reuniting, getting that camaraderie and that healing, there's nothing like that because it's not just the event. That's a that can be a lifetime for someone. I've seen so many times, um, all kinds of things come out of these events, and this one is no different, but incredibly special, safe space for healing, and I'm super stoked, doc. Do you have any closing words for our listeners today, brother?
I'm kind of where you are with this, Ryan. I came above board years ago into the regulated space because I saw back then that there was a lot of bullshit being put out immediately by not having any experience at all in it, but having a little sway on social media and to what it's morphed into now. It's like I am concerned for consumers that if you aren't growing your own, first and foremost, grow your own, and if you can't grow your own, then know the source. And if you don't know how to find the source, reach out and we can probably within our network put you into a source that you can feel comfortable knowing you're buying a safe quality product, but grow your own and support those that do. Okay. You may not grow your own, but growers within your circle and they're growing their flower holistically, then support that And most of my farmer friends are completely, they're just so humbled when you get support. The ones that are doing it still in my old neighborhood, it's like I've been out traveling for a while trying to help get the word out for a while. But back in Northern California, every operator that's still in the space in the triangle, with rare exception, are really brilliant, smart farmers. The small mom and pops are brilliant, and you can support them. Redwood Roots, Chief Redwood Roots, Chris Anderson, man, I think it's totally worth sitting down and having a combo. I'll sit in if you would like, that kind of thing. But yeah, support small mom and pops. If you're concerned about what you need help with, there's a lot of smart people in the space. You can reach out to me. I'm all over, easy to find on social media and online. If you want to reach out, I will try and respond back in a timely fashion. And my time frame may not be yours, but I will try to get back. It's like I traveling a lot right now, as you know, Chief. I'm not enjoying it and taking it and getting it out and doing a little bit more than being pinned down. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks, sir. And everybody else, if you want to come out, come out. It's a beautiful location with a good group of people that run the farm. The thing is put together correctly before we ever got involved. Ryan, Ian's been doing it for a while now. They're trying to create a cool venue space for music and food and arts and crafts, cannabis aside, all of those things. This was another addition to it over the last few years. I'm looking forward to it where you and I were. We want to start this thing off with good intention and hope that we have a good group of men and women show up and we can create a space that we know we can hold this event on a regular basis every year. That's a think is the ultimate goal for me with you, in our conversation. So I'll be there. Yeah.
Yep, I'm
So
excited to, network networks at this point. There's so many folks from, different states, even people that aren't camping out have reached out from, Virginia, North Carolina, even I think one from South Carolina that was gonna be in the area just even to say hi during the day, so that's gonna be phenomenal. We're at our time, so I wanna thank you again, Doc. Thank you so much for the information, for taking the time to have this conversation, but more importantly, for focusing the mission of healing for our veterans. And I am super excited to, again, just to hang out with you and whoever else wants to join us. So can't wait. Again, I'll get to it. That's May 2nd at Garrett Farms. Doc, I'm going to put you back and then I'll bring you right back when we're done here. Yep. Right on. Well, as we wrap this one up, I just want to say if you took even one useful piece from today's conversation, one mindset shift, one terpene insight, Doc gave us a few, one reminder that healing is real and it's possible and you all deserve it, then this episode did its job because that's the goal. It's not noise, it's progress, education, it's connection, and making sure veterans know they're not alone and what they're carrying. Doc Ray, thanks again for coming back and bringing me real wisdom, truth, and that legacy perspective. You can't fake that. Not everyone has it. To everyone listening, take what you learned today and put it into action. Share this episode out with a buddy. Start a conversation that matters. Tell them about DD-420. And if you're struggling, don't isolate. Reach out to somebody. We lose too many good people in silence, and I'm not willing to accept that as a normal. That's why we talk about it here. And if you're able to make it, I hope to see you there May 2nd at Garrett Farms for Virginia Spring Fest 2026. And when that event ends, Mission DD 420 begins. So, as always, lead with love,